young actors and one nature photographer are setting out to explore some of the wildest places the world has to offer. This is the crew. This is the route. This is the life.
I really didn't know anything about a manatee before I came.
It wound up being like a perfect situation. Captain Hank was very knowledgeable and knew where to go.
This is Kings Bay. This is the headwaters to the river. All this water that we're in comes from underground springs. What brings the manatees here is the warm water of the springs. Anything below 68 degrees, they can die of hypothermia.
Manatees are a funny looking animal.
How would you describe a manatee?
It's like
Part puppy.
like a walrus,
It's like the dog with the squished in face.
a really nice, fat, jolly person.
Just kind of sits there, just goes along the bottom and it's just vacuuming up its food, just kind of cruising all day.
Part of the excitement of going out and seeing the manatees is the search for them.
I've never even seen one of those. I've never even seen a manatee, let alone swam with one.
You're looking everywhere to try to find the swirl in the water that they tell you to look for, maybe the snout coming up.
Here he is, right here.
Oh, wow. When you first do see it from outside the water, it's pretty startling because you see how big they are.
You spot them from the boat. You're like, all right, we're gonna jump in and try to find it.
Where do we think they are? Right back in here?
As soon as you jump in the water and you see it, then you get to touch it, it's just like, oh my God, it's a otherworldly experience, really.
It's incredible to be that close to an animal that big. Once you get past the initial shock of just how large it is, you realize that they're actually really social and gentle animals.
It's neat because for me, that interaction that people make is one of the most special parts of being outside. And when they make eye contact with you, a manatee swam up to me and looked at me right in the eyes, like right in front of my mask, and just stopped and held. And then they mimic you. Steven was in the water swimming, and he'd roll, and the manatee would roll with him, and they'd kind of move their arms, and the flippers would move the same way as his hands.
I think it just kept rolling over and over again, and then it would start like kind of scratching itself. Like take its little arm and just like try scratching his chin. It's almost like it was trying to tell me where to scratch it.
We're not speaking a language, but we're definitely communicating. And to me, that's one of the most special things that people can have.
I think it was like really, really interacting with me, which was awesome.
We get into the Everglades and we pick up a couple canoes. We packed just kind of minimal gear.
Trying to find this place called the Pearl Bay Chickie. And the Chickie is basically a giant wooden platform that the National Park Service has put up out in these far reaches of the Everglades. So here's where we're headed. And we just got a straight shot through all this mangrove, and then it opens up into the open water a little bit more. You kind of come up into Pearl Bay, and that's our Chickie right there.
We jump in our canoes. And we start paddling through the mangroves that are about the width of three canoes.
Initially, we started off, it was kind of slow going.
I totally just lost my flip phone. Oh, that is so wrong.
We were getting caught on branches left and right.
Who's steering? Who's controlling? What are we doing? How are we getting through this? It's pretty shallow. We're sitting there, pinching our boat into the mangroves like constantly.
Embrace. We got a leaner.
But, you know, once we got out into the more open waters, we got a little speed going.
Really cool experience, something like I've never had before, because you're just ducking through the trees and through the mangroves, just paddling through, just kind of finding your way, not really knowing what to expect around the next corner. It was an adventure trying to figure out where we're going. But that it all made for the fun of it.
Does this mean I go right? No. There's nothing there.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean left.
Yeah, left.
At some points, you're almost going through this, it's just like this low tunnel of vegetation. And there's a, you know, a thick canopy above you.
Just immediately hits you where it's like, this isn't like anything I've ever done before. This is awesome.
I haven't felt as transported to some other place as I did when I was in the mangroves. You know, I felt like I could be on another planet, really. Ian and I ended up seeing a manatee in the mangroves, which apparently is pretty rare.
Give me a manatee off to your right. Any second
And we eventually got to the chickies.
And there's nothing else around. There's no trail that leads to it. There's no signs. There's nothing. That's it. And then it's just you and then the whole environment, like to yourself.
It's something that to me is such a rare opportunity to have, to be able to get that far back out in a mangrove and then lay out there on a deck listening to all the different birds and sounds of gators in the distance.
You really don't have to be connected with the world electronically. There's other ways to be connected with the world if you just sit back and relax.
As the night fell, we got to, you know, talk and kind of bond and have a couple beers, have a little meal, you know, dangle our feet in the water. It felt like prime real estate, you know. It felt like I really was sleeping somewhere where, you know, if I was in a hotel room, people would pay a lot of money to look out their window and see something like that. But, you know, here I was just on a little chickie in a sleeping bag, you know, in a tent next to my brother. And I really enjoyed that feeling. It was a good way to end the night.
Just taking in all the sounds of the environment, it kind of rocks you to sleep. It's almost like that alarm clock that's got the nature sounds, but it's legitimate. It's actually real sounds.
Probably the most serenely peaceful place I've been in my entire life. I think that will be the most amazing thing I take away from the trip.
You know, we're laying out there on this deck in our sleeping bags, and then all of a sudden the wind starts to pick up, and we get this thunderstorm. And it's just these bursts of light out on the horizon. When you're out in the Everglades, you really feel far removed, and the landscape is just really, really different. Something about the abundance of life here, the alligators, the egrets and birds. There's just so much here that I've always loved. I think it's one of the most special places in this country.
Right away, it was like that picturesque, beautiful setting that I imagined it to be. It was a mix of having like the tight enclosure of kind of feel like you're walking through a jungle a little bit, to then opening up to a wide space as you can see for miles.
I think for me as a photographer, it's always great to bring perspective of different people in. And you know, these guys they're in the outdoors, and it's interesting because to have these guys with you, it really changes that perspective. I get really excited when they get excited.
I knew coming in that it was going to be a whole different level down here, that I was going to see things that I had never seen before. And I was really excited about that. It's like everywhere you look, there's like something new for your eye to take in.
I didn't really expect them to be interested in photography. They were really into like picking up cameras.
It's like sniping with these things, man. It's like, hold your breath.
I love sharing what I do. I love sharing photography with people, and so it's cool to have people who are into it too.